Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carl. I'm a recovery coach here at Cap Recovery Center. This is our Freedom Fridays meeting for the day. And the article out here is Strategies for Personal Growth and Recovery. This is actively pursuing personal growth requires specific strategies and tools. Fortunately, many therapeutic approaches and recovery programs are designed to facilitate this very process. One highly effective strategy is utilizing cognitive behavioral therapy, known as CBT. For self improvement, CBT is a widely used type of talk therapy that helps individuals identify and change destructive thought patterns that negatively influences behavior and emotions in the context of recovery. CBT is invaluable because it teaches you how to recognize the thoughts that might lead to cravings or relapse. Just one won't hurt, or I can't handle this stress without drugs. Once these distorted thoughts we have identified, CBT provides techniques to challenge and reframe them into more positive and realistic ones. For instance, the thought I'm a failure because of my addiction can reframe to my past actions were influenced by addiction, but I'm capable of change and building a better future. CBT also focuses on developing coping skills and behavioral strategies. You learn to manage stress, solve problems, and handle challenging situations in healthy ways instead of turning to substance. Yeah, that was my go-to for me anyway. Was like, I can't do this, I can't do that. Like I was always in a negative mindset. My thinking was distorted. So like today, like I can challenge myself to do something different. Change my perspective, change my thinking, and not always have to rely and go to the substance. That was always a temporary fix, which I didn't really understand. Because like when the drugs and alcohol are gone, I'm still left with my emotions, I'm still left with my feelings, and I'm still left with my thoughts. So I had to do something different this time and really, change my perspective and really challenge myself and not always relying on drugs and alcohol, which I did for many years. Like that was my go-to. I had different ways to cope with my emotions and feelings. And it's like talking with others, talking with other people in recovery, talking with my sponsor, people in my network. I need to either get out of my own self and out of my own thoughts and ask people for help and ask for suggestions. And instead of just acting out on my emotions and feelings, right? Run it past somebody before I make a decision. Not always, right? But like when I need be that I think I'm in a situation that I'm not too comfortable, doing myself. I can ask for help. It says online CBD themes, powerful tools from the comfort of your own home. So yeah, there's things online that we can do, right? Um, so it says making it easier to integrate addiction treatment. Another crucial strategy involves participating in structured recovery programs, particularly intensive outpatient programs provides a higher level of care than traditional outpatient therapy, but allows you to live at home and maintain some daily responsibilities. So there's, meetings and support groups, and there's outpatients, IIPs, also online if you can't make it in person. There's different avenues and different pathways to recovery and different things that we can do to better ourselves. There's strategies for personal growth and recovery, and there's many of them. It says the structure of an IOP inherently conducive to personal growth. It typically involves multiple therapy sessions per week, including group therapy, individual counseling, and educational workshops. Group therapy allows you to connect with peers, share experiences, and practice new social skills and receive support and constructive feedback. All vital for growth, individual therapy provides a safe space to explore personal issues, process trauma, and develop tailored strategies with a therapist. So it's always good to get professional help, right? And I had to do it, and many others had to do it, right? So like it talks about processing past trauma, right? And it's always good in a group setting, but it's always good for like one-on-one sessions with therapists and counselors and like trusted people, mentors, like I said earlier, sponsor. Um, the best way for me to get better is expressing myself, expressing my emotions and feelings, right? And asking for help. Something I didn't do for many years was ask for help, and I didn't know how to express my emotions and feelings. Right, I always drowned them in drugs and alcohol. And that's today in recovery. I can see I was avoiding my emotions and feelings and deflecting on what's really going on. I was in denial, and I didn't want to face reality. I didn't want to face myself and the damage I've caused, right? So it's a recovery for me is about changing and growing and doing something different. Because what I was doing in the past was not working. It was just not working. It hasn't worked for me for many, many years. So I had to apply some of the principles that is taught to us. I had to accept, had to surrender, and I had to let go. And I had to ask for help. And this last time I came into treatment, and I did something different this time when I got out, and I found out that like I'm not unique, I'm not different, right? And there's people out there just like me that are getting better, right? Because like I said, I am my worst enemy. I'm my worst critic. I can set myself up for failure just by what I'm telling myself. I was like the biggest barrier for me getting into recovery, until I let go and got out of my negative mindset and that negative self-talk and start to see myself change and grow and start to see my assets because I was always stuck in a defect or into a shortcoming and I was always in the negative, right? Because the way I was living and the way I was acting. So, as soon as I put the drugs and alcohol down, I got a raise. I got a pay raise, right? I start to get better. I start to change. I start to grow. I start to gather the gifts of recovery, right? And I'm not just talking about material things. I'm talking about the peace of mind that I have today, the happiness, the joyous and freedom I have. I don't have to look over my shoulder. People trust and rely on me and count on me. They love and care about me and they support me. And that's how recovery works. I also pay it forward. What was given to me, I freely give it away. But recovery is possible and recovery does work. It's just I had to put the work in. I had to be willing. Let's see here. So how overcoming challenges in personal growth. While the path of professional growth and recovery is incredibly rewarding, it is not without its challenges. Recognizing these potential obstacles and developing strategies to navigate them is crucial for maintaining momentum and preventing discouragement. One of the first steps is identifying and addressing common obstacles. What gets in the way of your growth? Procrastination is a major one. Putting off difficult tasks or uncomfortable self-reflection. Fear of failure or fear of success can also be paralyzing, making you hesitate to set goals or pursue new opportunities. Complacency can set in once initial sobriety is achieved. You might feel good enough and stop actively working on yourself. Past trauma or unresolved mental health issues, often addressed in dual diagnosis treatment, can resurface as you peel back the layers, requiring careful processing, navigate self-talk, and limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I remember that one. I always struggle are insidious barriers that undermine confidence and motivation. Relationship challenges, since financial stress or health problems can also divert focus from personal development. Identifying the specific obstacles requires self-awareness and honest reflection. Often facilitated in therapy, for example, you might realize that whenever you feel overwhelmed, you retreat and avoid dealing with the situation that prevents growth. Yeah, by working on myself, I see like avoidance was apparent in my life. Like I didn't want to face reality. I wanted to avoid things that I didn't like being controlled or told what to do. So I would avoid people, places, and things that wasn't beneficial for me and what I wanted, right? And it took me many years to understand that, um, it talks about the personal development and identifying the specific obstacles. So the people, places, things I was surrounding myself with, were triggers or were obstacles that led me back to using. I was a product of my environment, the people I was hanging around with, the environment I was hanging around in, and so I had to change that, and that took time. I had to change the people, places, and things that I was associated with using drugs and alcohol. I can't get clean and stop using drugs and alcohol and think I'm going to be participating in the same stuff that I was doing before. I'm just asking for, I'm asking for trouble. So when I start to cut out the people, places, and things and create new people, places, and things for recovery, I start to change. I start to grow, and I had to be done, but it can be tough. To let go of the past can be really hard, but like it betters. It was hard to let go because it was familiar, right? It was safe to me. Being, what they say, it was safe being in the toxic life that I was living, which is like the product of insanity, you know. So I had to break that illusion. I had to break free of self and do something different, which is, like I said earlier, it's hard, because it's something I was doing every day, to let go of something that was familiar and I was using every day. It's fear based, really. Let's see. So it's developing strategies for maintaining motivation and focus is essential for pushing through these challenges. Motivation is a constant state and flows. To connect through these challenges can deeply with your reason for wanting to grow and stay clean. Your values, your hopes uh, for the future, your loved ones, visualize the best version of you and keep that vision in your mind. Break down larger goals into smaller, actionable steps, celebrating each one as you complete it. This creates a sense of progress and achievement, fueling motivation and establish routines and schedules that include time for self care. Yeah, self care is very important. Therapeutic work and pursuing your goals, consistency builds momentum. Seek support from your network when motivation wanes. Sometimes just talking through your struggles with your sponsor or a therapist can reignite your drive. Learning new skills, whether it's a coping mechanism from CBT or a practical life skill, provides a sense of accomplishment and competence. Mindfulness practices can help you stay present and focused on the task at hand, rather than getting lost in anxiety about the future or regrets about the past. Regularly reviewing your goals and reflecting on how far you've come can also boost morality and victories. Personal growth isn't a linear path, and major breakthroughs might not happen every day. Acknowledging and celebrating the small steps is crucial for maintaining and recognizing progress. Did you resist a craving? That's a victory. Did you attend all your therapy sessions this week? Victory. Did you handle a stressful situation without resorting to old behaviors? Huge victory. Did you take just one small step toward a long term goal? Celebrate it. These small wins build confidence, reinforce positive behaviors, and prove yourself that change is possible. Yeah, little things that we take for granted. And it talks about like just not using for today, not just picking up, right? Not acting out. They're small victories for me, and think is just change in itself, like doing something different, is a victory, because if I don't change and I don't grow, I'm going to result back to my past bad behaviors, so recovery is a new way of life for me anyway, because everybody's story is different, right? But My life consists of using drugs and alcohol for many years, since I was 12, 13 years old, right? So recovery to me is new and it's different, right? And just not picking up is a huge victory, right? Day at a time, we don't use, and changing my behaviors, right? When I really want to act out, right? Or say something that's not nice and I just keep it to myself, that's a victory. Things like that. Doing something different than I did before, right? And I keep doing that. We stayed out of our selfish, self-centered ways, and it's gonna be tough at times because that's like the root cause of disease of addiction is selfish and self-centeredness, right? We're always self-seeking. It's always about us and not caring about others. It's about what we want, and we'll think about the consequences later. So I had to retrain my mind and do things different this time because if I want to stay off of drugs and alcohol, I had to change everything about me, and that took time. It doesn't happen overnight. I had to be patient with myself. It's like I want to, we want instant gratification. We want things now, but if I don't like, stay in position and hold on and just keep doing what I'm doing the right thing for the right reason, no matter what is going on in my life, we get better. Things will come. I just have to stay patient and tolerant, apply the principles that is taught to us, and I have, I built a solid foundation in recovery. They tell me they suggested certain things to me, and like I followed through with that. As before, I was always running off self will. I always did what I wanted to do, and I wasn't willing to listen to anybody. And so I took the suggestions this time and followed through. Getting a support network, getting a sponsor, getting a home group, or getting a trusted mentor, or there's many things that we can do here to benefit our lives and progress our recovery, because recovery is a lifelong process, and I have to continue to do things to better myself on a daily basis for the rest of my life, right? Like I had disease of addiction, right? And like I am in recovery, but I have to maintain my recovery on a daily basis. And I couldn't grasp that before. I thought maybe I could just start using drugs and alcohol and maintain my recovery just being abstinent. And for me that doesn't work. So I had to, I went to treatment this last time and I followed through with aftercare, and I continue to do that, on most days on a daily basis. So, some of the strategies that we talk about for personal growth and recovery, it's different for everybody. It's definitely different for everybody. But I always tell people we have to find something. There's something that we have, not just people in recovery or addicts, right? People in general, we're all human beings. We all need help. We all need support, right? We can't always run off of self will. We always need other perspectives and people to help us. And because I want healthy relationships, right? And I need healthy relationships. And that was not the case when I was out there using drugs and alcohol and behaving the way I was behaving. Unity is definitely a big part of my story. I needed people to love me up because I really didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to take care of myself. The way I took care of myself was, using drugs and alcohol. I wasn't worried about anything else but myself. And I was very selfish and self-centered. So like now I can think of others today before I think about myself. And that's like my purpose is helping others, doing the right thing for the right reason, and not expecting something in return. Because it was always a give and take relationship when I was in active addiction. What can you get from me, and what can I get from you? There was no genuine care for one another. which is, part of the process of using drugs and alcohol. And I understand today, like my past doesn't define who I am, right? My past is my past, and I can reflect on that, but like it's about staying in the solution and moving forward with my life. And that's just, I am not that person that I once was, right? It's because I don't use drugs and alcohol, and my life, as soon as I stopped using, my life has gotten better, and it keeps getting better, but like I said earlier, I have to maintain my recovery. I have to maintain it on a daily basis, because if I don't maintain it, eventually, I can go backwards, and I don't want to do that. I can, like I said this at another support group that I was doing. I can learn from others' mistakes today. I don't have to always learn from my own. And that's a big thing that I had to do in active addiction. I was always learning from my own mistakes. And I kept on repeating them over and over and over and over again. And today I can learn from others. And, I don't have to go off of my first thought, my first feeling, right? I don't have to respond or react the way I did before, because the only thing it did is got me in a lot of trouble. So that was our Freedom Fridays meeting for the day, strategies for personal growth and recovery. And there's many of them, and there's many pathways, many strategies we can change and we can grow. Recovery is possible, but like I said, we have to maintain our recovery on a daily basis. It's just not going to be handed to us. People can help us, people can support us, and people can show us the way. But ultimately, it's up to me putting in the work and putting in the action to, I have to, advocate for myself. And that's like bottom line. I have to put the work in. Until next time, my name is Carl, I'm a recovery coach at Cap Recovery Center. Until next time, we'll see you later.